Welcome to AP Environmental Science. In this video, we are going to talk a little bit about this process called aquaculture. Now, aquaculture is the farming of fish, shellfish, mollusks, crustaceans, or even aquatic plants with the purpose of selling them to consumers for profit. Now, this can take place in both marine, which is saltwater environments, or in freshwater environments, depending on the type of organism you're trying to raise. And this could be land-based or out in open water. Now, typically the land-based operations involve a bunch of tanks, but it could involve a bunch of man-made ponds that are kind of situated on land. So that would be our land-based type. The open water is typically these pens out in the ocean or lakes, or sometimes in the case of mollusks, it is actually these little sacks or bags that are penned down or attached to this shallow section of the water body, which we see in that picture in the bottom right of the screen. Now, by and large, China is actually the leader in aquaculture production, producing most of their fish products through aquaculture compared to any other place in the world. And this is both in marine and in freshwater settings. So they really are driving this industry. But why do we care about aquaculture? Well, wild-caught fishes have been largely flat since the 1990s. So we're not seeing this increase in fish catch from the ocean, and that's largely due to this depletion from overfishing. So aquaculture is projected to fill that gap because we have this growing demand for meat protein, particularly from fish and shellfish. And right now, aquaculture accounts for about 49% of global consumption, and it's projected to continue to increase and account for about 62% by the year 2030. So when we think about aquaculture, typically we're thinking of this fish farming, and that is the round pen with the fish swimming around inside of it. There are some of these fish spheres that are kind of submerged under the water, so it looks like a ball that's kind of made of this mesh netting that allows the water to move in but keeps the fish trapped inside. In the case of producing aquatic plants for consumption, these are usually these buoys out in the ocean with a string attached that the plants are anchored to. We also have mussels that, again, are sessile or attached to a specific location. So perhaps they're attached to a grid, or they are found inside of this sack or bag that is attached to some kind of buoy or the bottom of the ocean or water body. So these are some of the methods of what it kind of looks like underneath the surface of the water. Now, there are several significant advantages to using aquaculture over traditional wild-caught fishing. The first one is that it's providing this high-quality protein to an ever-growing human population. This also is providing a stable, consistent income to fisherfolk, and this has a lot less risk than open water fishing. If you've ever seen those TV shows where you're following fishermen going out into the open ocean, they face a lot of hazards. Whereas with aquaculture, this is usually a little closer to the shore, so you have less of that transportation time, so less of that risk of time being out on the open water. This also uses less acreage or space and less water per kilo compared to terrestrial agriculture, and aquaculture is a very efficient means of producing animal proteins. And of course, as alluded to just a moment ago, aquaculture uses a lot less fossil fuel because you don't have to take your fishing boat out into the ocean water, drive around trying to find the fish, trying to capture the fish, and then drive all the way back to the shore. Aquaculture is usually done relatively close to the shoreline, so it's easier to access and monitor. Although we have all of those good advantages, there are also several significant disadvantages to aquaculture. The first one is the waste from the fish or shellfish. Typically, waste contains a lot of nitrogen, and this nitrogenous waste can build up and concentrate in that area near the pen. Now, this leads to the process of eutrophication. So you have extra nutrients, which leads to extra plant growth, but that's a boom-bust cycle, and that can lead to some devastating consequences. The uneaten food can also contribute to that eutrophication and lead to other water quality issues. And of course, if we're trying to farm fish in a specific location, perhaps they're not native to that area, and these nets are not completely foolproof. Fish are known to be rather clever and to escape from those pens. So that could lead to interbreeding and competing with the wild organisms. So that escaped fish does lead to some issues. Additionally, there are diseases that spread quite rapidly in a concentrated or densely populated area. Now, these diseases are not just stuck inside of that pen. The wild fish are swimming in that same body of water, and the disease can transfer from in the pen to outside of the pen, and that can really significantly impact those wild populations. But of course, any good fisherman is trying to reduce that impact, so they're going to use medications to control this disease. However, those medications are not staying in that pen, and if not measured appropriately, could pollute that waterway. So in summary, the human population growth is going to need a sustainable protein source, and aquaculture does fit into this overall picture. And with anything in the environment, there are pros and cons. Again, you need to know the advantages. We're using less land and water, less fossil fuels, we're reducing that overfishing. But there is a flip side to the coin. We are going to have water contamination from the food waste and from uneaten food. We're going to have that potential for escape from the pens. And with any densely populated population, we're going to see disease spread, and that disease and any parasites associated with them could escape into the wild population. Now, I know this was pretty brief. Please make sure you took good notes. Please send me your questions, and I hope that as you watch this video, you were able to learn something.